do, 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 do. Alright, howdy neighbors. I'm going to do my best to knock this puppy out of the park today. Yeah, I'm still dealing with it though. And what is it? It's that nasty thing that's going around. Yeah, you may have heard of it. Yeah. Yeah, it's the big C. It's that big nasty. As our friend over in Western New York, Nona Grace likes to call it the blue booger. Ugh. Basically, my my wife brought it back with her from over in the States. We went over to the States over Christmas, and my wife actually continued on down to Portland while I came home because I had some work stuff to deal with. And then her brother had been in Disneyland and came back, and it turns out he brought it back from Disneyland with him, and then she brought it back over here to me. And luckily it's like not horrid. It definitely knocked me out hard where I slept like almost 16 hours one day. But otherwise, I mean, it hasn't been so horrible that it's, completely knocked me out. There was like 2 or 3 days I really couldn't get any work done, and I just kind of stopped and didn't do anything. But after that, I managed to at least start getting some things done. I wrote a couple of scripts for the show, and managed to finally do some filming yesterday, which I got done. Was still very tough though. I gotta say that it's, if anything, the one thing COVID's been doing has been really sapping me of my energy, and it's also been giving me this cough, which hopefully you won't be subjected to much today. We shall see. But yeah, it's not pleasant, and look, but I'm dealing with it as best I can, and hopefully, at the moment, I'm still coming out as positive, even though I've had it over a week now, and I still officially have 5 days left on my quarantine, where you can get out of it immediately over here in the UK if you test negative 2 days in a row. Otherwise, they say quarantine at least 11 days, is it? 10, 11 days, something like that. And I did my test a couple days after my wife had come out positive, because the day after hers, basically she got hers that came out positive, and like my body immediately went, oh, I'm in trouble. And that night it started really hitting me right away. And the next day is the one that I was just out of it all day long. So that I didn't do my test till the next day. And sure enough, that came out, of course, positive. So, yeah. Woo! Exciting fun. Maybe not. I don't think of it as that much fun, but hey, it is what it is. But let's move on to some more interesting talk, which is orchids. I have had to do an emergency orchid repot this week, and earlier this week. And unfortunately, I have had this one orchid, Jenny, I'll show you her in a minute, where she's been very slowly leaning more and more in the pot, to the point where the pot was this way and the leaves were facing this way, and you're like going, yeah, no good can come of this. And sure enough, when I went to go grab it to water it on Sunday, the thing just tipped right over, kind of spilled a little bit over the place. And in so doing, I looked in the roots and I'm going, this not only is turned over, but it needs some help. It actually needs I need to actually repot this thing, because the roots are looking ugly and the soil's looking a little bit rough. It needs some help. Let me say hi to everybody here. Southern Rose Tia D, good to see you. Ecocentric Homestead, Rex George, good to see everybody who's commented. If there's anybody else hiding out there, hi, good to see you too. But thank you so much for dropping by. Yeah, thank you, Southern Rose. I am hoping to feel better soon. Even right now, talking, I know I won't go too long because I'm already feeling a little bit rough in here. I'll keep drinking the water. But the orchids, it taught me a valuable lesson. I'll talk about it. Let's go ahead and show you the process here of what happened. I'm going to bring up the orchids now. So here we go. This is Ginny, after I have taken her out of the soil. You can look at those roots. A lot of them are just ugly and need to be cut. They are just dead. There's nothing I can do with them. And so they have to go bye-bye. So yeah, this is what I saw, and I realized, you know, I can't live with this. I can't have these roots in there anymore. And so I had to just get rid of it. I had to kill those roots off. So I'm going to switch over here in a second, and it's going to show you me cutting these roots off. Oh wait, we're going to show you the soil first. This is what the soil looked like. I had a little bit of leca in there with my usual product of just the mixed bark. And this is the day I was supposed to water, and I bring out the bowl here to drop a bunch out. Maybe hard to see on the camera, but a lot of this, the actual soil part of it, the bark part, you can see it's all dark. That means it's still wet. And on the watering day, it shouldn't be wet still. And look at this. There's lots of dead roots just sitting in the bottom that came out because either just when it fell, it automatically ripped them off, or they had just been in there, which is just another sign that I really needed to repot this guy. And the big problem actually turned out to be was I had actually gone on, you know, researching as I do on several different YouTube channels and some advice on like, oh, what can I do even better for my orchids? And several people had mentioned a watering technique of letting your orchids just sit in the water for like 30 minutes. And it turned out for me here in the UK, that was the worst thing for me to do. I have henceforth stopped doing that and gone back to my original watering method. And I think it just goes to show the main point is this. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know what I'm saying? I had been using the same watering method for a good 7 years, you know, if not longer. And here's the orchid really quick with all the roots cut off. And you can see it still looks fantastic. She's got all these wonderful, long, beautiful silvery roots that are coming out. Some new green ones you can see as well. They're like nice great green tips that show they're still growing. There's one monster root that still has a lot of green on the end of it that I didn't cut off. That one right there. And it's beautifully long and awesome. But yeah, overall, I just had to... There's so much I took off of that. I mean, it was a massive repot. But yeah, even if you don't think you know that much, if it's working, you don't need to change it. And that was my mistake, is my orchids were happy with me just doing the water and not letting it sit in there and getting rid of it immediately. Now, I want to talk about this really quick in the repot section. You can see now that the main idea was that I wanted to get her standing up very straight. And you can see how I've got all the aerial roots staying on the outside. When you repot, you want to keep the aerial roots as aerial roots. So never change that, okay? If you're repotting, don't suddenly try and shove them down into the pot. Don't do that. It's not good for them. Always keep the aerial roots as aerial roots, the dirt roots as dirt roots. But the main idea here is to try and prevent it from tilting too fast. So I really wanted to get her standing up as straight as possible. And you'll see here in a second, once I've filled the whole pot, that I think I've done a really good job of it this time around. I think I didn't quite do what I needed to do last time to get her standing as straight as I needed to. And I think this time, if you can look at it and see her here, now that it's full, she's in there really solidly. I mean, very, very solidly, and I'm very happy with where she's at in the bowl here. So I think, look at that. I think it looks beautiful, and I am very looking forward to her going back to her normal pattern of things. I don't think she's gonna not. She may not actually flower for a while. She doesn't have a stem at the moment growing, and so after a repot. I mean, can sometimes take up to a year afterwards for you to actually see a new stem coming out. So I wouldn't be surprised if I don't get one immediately. But after doing this repot, I think it went extremely well. Thank God, because after the last one was rough. I didn't do a very good job on the last one, and part of it was I had waited too long before the last repot. Anyways, I very much prescribe to the idea that if it looks like it needs a repot, just do the repot. They say generally don't do one for every 2 years, at least, if not longer. But if you're seeing your medium breaking down, and if you're seeing something going wrong, if the roots are getting ugly and dying, then repot, baby. It's better for them than leaving them sitting in ugly dead roots. That's my theory, and it's worked for me so far, so I'm sticking with that. Yes, I am. But I think from now on, yeah, I am definitely going to go stick with my traditional watering method of what I do is I just pour the water in at the top of the soil, and then I let it drain through, and as soon as it's done draining through, I just drop the water out and put it away, and that's it. Part of the reason for that is you do want to keep them in a certain amount of humidity through the week if you can, and I keep mine right next to the sink, and they get lots of great humidity and moisture coming up from the steam of the sink when I'm washing dishes or other things, or even just the steam from cooking in the kitchen. They'll get water from that as well. So they're in a very humid area. They really don't need a heavy watering every week, which was the problem. It's like, even if it's a lower humidity in my area where I'm at, the kitchen itself and where I have them positioned is a higher humidity area. And keeping them in that humidity of 50 to 70% where orchids like to live, especially the Phalaenopsis, which is what I have, it's really one that you got to do in order to keep them happy. And it's one of those things that people say is like, oh, it's so hard to raise orchids. Really, at the end of the day, it's not. It's really just finding what's important for where you're at. My mom is up in Alaska, and the humidity up there is horrible, so she has to do a completely different watering technique from what I do here. If you're in Florida, it's going to be different. If you're in Washington or somewhere like that, it's going to be different. So it just depends on which zone you're in as to what your watering technique's going to be. But the general rule of thumbs is, you can watch my orchid video. I've got one that talks about the general watering rules, especially as it goes to Phalaenopsis. It doesn't exactly hold it as true to Vandas or some of the other breeds that are out there, because your technique does change slightly depending on the type of orchid. And I'm not going to talk about Vandas or totally buzzing the name of it right now. One of the other major breeds that people like to keep, because I don't have any right now, and I haven't had any for a while, so I'm really not going to be talking about those at all. You guys can, maybe watch one of the other channels that knows those for those. But the Phalaenopsis I've been growing for over 10 years now, and Ollie's still going strong. He's my main one, and Ginny's my secondary one. I do actually want to get another orchid or two, if I can talk my wife into it, if I can find space for it, because I love orchids, and I am very happy with them. I probably will get another Phalaenopsis, because I really don't have a good place for a Vanda. They tend to be ones that just have nothing but aerial roots, and you actually need to water them a bit differently because of that. But and I'm just a big fan of the Phalaenopsis. I'll just probably try and just get a different color one. But Southern Rose Tia D says, "Oh, good to know. Thank you. Yep, never got the hang of orchids and given up on them." Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's I think they're a great one to do, because once you figure out the system for the area where you're at, they are actually rather low maintenance. You really only have to water an orchid, depending on where you're at, once a week, maybe once in a week and a half for a primary watering. If you're in a lower humidity place, you may actually have to like spray them with a little spray bottle once a day or something like that to give them a little extra humidity. But like I said, it just depends on where you're at, what your humidity levels are like. But you can find my orchid video talking about all the basic techniques you need to do if you want to more details about that. Otherwise, like I said, 50 to 70% humidity is the prime zone for them. Man with a Porpoise says, I got a green thumb that turns black when handling orchids. Yeah, I know. For some reason, there's a bugaboo with orchids with people. Maybe sometimes it might actually be that just when they're store-bought, when you buy them from a store, depending on the store that you get them from, they can actually either be diseased already or just already be neglected already. And so they're, not as in good a shape. And so it actually takes a little bit more work to get them back to their natural state. So I think that's part of the problem too. So it's like if you're getting one, sometimes it actually is probably best to get it from a nursery that's actually really taking good care of the orchids compared to a store that is not taking as good care of them. So it's definitely something to consider. Man with a Porpoise also says, I gave up on them and now just enjoy the wild ones in the backwaters. Oh yeah, it's always nice coming across wild orchids if you can. In my area, I don't really have any of them, unfortunately, but I totally know what you mean. Yeah, if you can come across wild orchids, they're fun to see, and I know Florida has several different types down there. Hello, Food Forest Permaculture. So good to see you. How's things going over there? Yeah, I'm glad you made it. We've been talking orchids here and orchid care. And the primary lesson of the day, in case you missed it, is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's your life lesson of the day from me. And it applies for I think for all plants really. The main rule is just learning what works for your zone, and sometimes that's a bit of trial and error to figure that out. But for me, I either just luckily figured out what was good for the orchids here early on, and just didn't realize it, and decided, oh, I don't know enough about orchids. I need to keep learning more, and I should start trying some of these different techniques that these orchid experts say I should do. And it's so easy to get sucked in by that. It's so easy when you got these people who grow, thousands of orchids. And I know my man down in Florida who grows them down there. I'm forgetting his name, so sorry. I'm not doing good right now with the brain. It'll come to me in a minute. But there's a big, one of my channels I follow is a big time orchid grower. He has hundreds of orchids, I think. And he keeps a lot of them outside because in Florida you can. The humidity is great down there and the moisture outside is great down there, so he can easily do that. He also keeps some in other different protected areas as well, just depending on the type of orchid. Yeah, it just depends on your region. Okay. There goes the voice. That's a problem I was having yesterday when I was trying to record. All of a sudden my voice was getting all creakly and squeaky. Ugh. It's also difficult because at the end of the day, it's going to end up fantastic because I got my camera from my mom for ye old, whatchamacallit? Christmas. See, what I told you, the brain's not working today. For Christmas, my mom finally gave me one of her old cameras that she uses primarily for pictures, but also does high definition film. So I've been really looking forward to getting that because I wanted to switch out using just my old iPhone for doing my channel videos for a more professional camera. And now I can do that. And my first foray into doing it was mostly successful, but partly a failure. A lot of the takes, the autofocus ended up looking really weird or just completely went out of focus when I did it. And so I may have to do a little extra B-roll on my history of pumpkins video. So you'll have to look forward to that. But otherwise, yeah, hopefully it won't look too bad. I think overall the footage looks pretty good. So, our treasured home, good to see you. She says, yeah, she got it too, but it only got you for a week. Yeah, it's hanging on a little bit longer with me for whatever reason. We had to cancel 2 different shows we're going to go see up in London, unfortunately. So we'll have to wait a little bit longer for those. Fresh and oregano tea does wonder for throat issues. Oh yeah, oregano's good for that. Sage tea is good for that. Ginger can be good for that too. There's lots of good ones that are really good ones for throats. Food Forest Permaculture says, so you caught the flu. Yes, the big flu. Yes. The monster flu. The big C flu. We won't mention its name. The cold which shall not be named. Yeah, so I got the big guy, and I'm still testing positive for it. So hopefully very soon it'll officially be gone. Like I said, I'm feeling incrementally better each day, but it still makes me a little bit tired pretty easily when I do actually anything physical. So like when I tried to film yesterday, it got me tired. Today while I'm doing this, I'm probably not going to last as long as I normally would because it's already getting me a little bit tired. Besides, I didn't plan too much to talk about other than just the basic orchid maintenance and also just talking about the old cold flu-y thing that I got. And yeah, but yeah, the plan for the channel is that I cut up for the first time, instead of doing one big video like I tend to do with my history videos, I actually broke it up into 2 different scripts. So I've got the history of pumpkins part 1 and part 2 coming out. Part 1 is more of the actual chronological history of pumpkins throughout the years, and it basically goes over from ancient times to about the 1800s, and then part 2 covers more modern facts and information about pumpkins, including all the Guinness records that are out there involving pumpkins, which are really quite fascinating, and some of them are pretty crazy. So those are going to be the upcoming weeks here. Hopefully I'll get that done in time for my next release on Tuesday or Thursday next week. I just started editing it today, so like I said, the COVID slowed things down. I am wanting to release it next week if I can. If not, maybe we'll do another live stream or something, just to give you guys another video to watch until I finally get my primary video done. But then after that, I already wrote the scripts for, and we'll be shooting very soon, the benefits of nettle tea. I've got the benefits of blue pea tea or butterfly pea tea ready to go. So a couple of benefits of teas going on. And then also I've got, not too long after that, the benefits of pine needle tea. Because for one, someone from the channel had actually asked for that a little while back. And then I also saw that it's, a big thing right now for some reason. So I'm doing a video on that. And then my plan after that is hopefully to knock out the monster, the history of salt. Followed, of course, by the history of pepper. So I'm looking at hitting the monster spices this year, the alpha primes, as it were, the 2 biggest spices in the world. You could easily say salt and pepper. I know there's a couple others that are pretty close with ginger and friends, but salt and pepper, yeah, they're the big ones. And I probably should have done them to start off my channel, but here we are. We're knocking them out now. Let's see what the comments say. Food Forest Permaculture says, off for his daily walk. Enjoy, friend. Yoo-hoo. Man with a Porpoise says, grew up in Puerto Rico and Spanish pumpkin is a main staple. Yeah. All right. So is red beans. Yeah. Puerto Rico and Spanish pumpkin. Yep. Oh, there it is, the cough. Excuse me. Yep. But there is a little bit of controversy that I talk about in the history of pumpkins, how there's a very small segment that actually say pumpkins originated in Europe, not in Central America, which is where most experts say that they originated from. So it's going to be an interesting thing for you to watch when you finally catch that video that's coming out in a week or 2. Rich Jorks like some salt. Doesn't everybody like a little bit of salt? Some of us are allowed to have more of it than others, apparently, but hey, there you go. So, yeah, unless you have any questions about orchids or herbs or anything, I've talked about what I came to talk about today, and I'm going to hit the road and let you guys hit the road too. People run down table salt down, but man lived forever eating that salt. Yeah, people like to run down table salt, but it's not as bad as you think. I think I am actually planning on doing a benefits of salt video as well, because there is that myth that you can't have salt to a certain level, and I definitely want to go into the details of how much salt is too much, and is table salt fine for you, different things along those lines I definitely want to talk about. But yeah, thanks so much for joining me today. You guys have a great day. I'm gonna head down the road, and thanks for everything. Love you guys. Take care.